Testing, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting, agenda number 4 for the 5th of May. If anyone would like to speak to any item that's on the agenda, if they could fill out a form under the television screen at the door and hand it to the clerk, we'd be happy to hear from you. Declarations of interest, déclaration d'intérêt. Confirmation of minutes, the 3rd of April 2015, process verbal, le 7 avril 2015. Carried. Communications as presented. City Manager's Office, City Treasurer and Finance, Operating and Capital Budget Q1 Status Report. Received. Item 2, Delegation of Authority, contracts awarded for the period October 1st to December 31st, 2014. Délégation de pouvoir, contrat accordé pour la période de 1er octobre au 31 décembre 2014. Received. Purchasing year in review, we have a presentation, so we'll come back to that. Economic Development Branch, we have a staff presentation as well as members of the public wishing to speak, so we'll come back to that as well. Celebrations Ottawa Incorporated, Board of Directors and Service Agreement, Célébration Ottawa Incorporated, Conseil d'administration et entente de service.
Just wanted to hold on behalf of one of the colleagues that isn't here yet. Wanted to hold that.
Okay. And then we've got Planning and Infrastructure, Delegation of Authority, Acquisition and Sale of Land and Property, July 1st, 2014 to March 31st, 2015. Délégation de pouvoir, acquisition et vente de terrain et de propriété le 1er juillet 2014 au 31 mars 2015. Received. Freeman Pedestrian Bridge over Rideau Street.
On behalf of the same colleague that's not here, hold that as well.
Okay. Okay, and that is it. So we'll go to the first item we have delegations for, which is, sorry, on the Celebration Ottawa, who was that wanted to hold that? Okay. All right, so our first item that we have delegations on is Economic Development Strategy. So we'll ask staff to come forward. Mr. Bashir with his presentation, and then we have yeah, but we have public delegations for this one. We go to the public first because there's no one. I don't think there's any delegations for item 3, purchasing review. No. Okay, so we'll go to number 4, and Mr. Bashir has a presentation, and then we'll go to public delegations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. The next few slides will provide you a summary of the proposed economic development strategy for this term of Council. And before we look at the proposed, some brief background. The strategy that guided us the last term of Council, called Partnership for Prosperity, is coming to a close at the end of 2014. And that document was a major shift in how the City of Ottawa facilitated economic development efforts. It was the first time, perhaps in a long time, that the City of Ottawa made a major commitment towards economic development, and not just in terms of words, but also in terms of a few bold steps and some new investment dollars. And I will go through some of those accomplishments in a moment. There are a few lessons that we have learned from the city's past experience over the last few years that are worth mentioning. Chief amongst them for me has been the realization that the City of Ottawa is a critical but a very small player in terms of influencing wholesale change in our local economy. And one of the simple reasons is that there is no such thing anymore as a local economy. Our private sector is connected to the rest of the world, and it's getting impacted with things like Canadian currency fluctuation, the relationships we have as a country with other countries, the American trade policies financial turmoil in Europe, and all of that is making a significant impact to export-oriented private sector in Ottawa. Another realization that we have is that the competition we are facing for both investment dollars and top talent is extremely fierce. We are no longer just competing with Montreal or Waterloo, but we are talking about a global competition where cities are constantly innovating themselves in terms of how they're presenting to the rest of the world. The next couple of slides are going to briefly acknowledge some of the accomplishments that we have over the last few years. Of course, the big one is the transformation of Oak Creek to Invest Ottawa, and that was not just a simple rebranding of a 20-year-old organization. That was a senior management change, a new board recruitment, a new office space, a new work plan, and most importantly, a new focus for the organization. We continue to work with them to help them refine their service offerings better, and I'm happy to report that the overwhelming feedback that we receive about Invest Ottawa continues to be positive. The ability of Invest Ottawa to demonstrate that they can run an incubation space was critical for us to convince the province of Ontario to give us the funds needed to create the Innovation Center at Bayview Yards. And that is a huge project, a lot of work being done by a voluntary board of directors, with economic development providing secretariat services, and we expect doors to open in fall of 2016. Partnership with Ottawa Tourism has been a cornerstone of our last 4 years, and many successes have resulted, including the Major Events Attraction Office that not too long ago was recognized by the Canadian Sports Tourism Alliance as a very unique initiative and won an award. And building on that relationship with the tourism folks, we have embarked upon a very aggressive plan for 2017, which is going to be a huge economic opportunity for the city, and of course will take shape over the next few years. Another partnership we are very proud of is with the BIAs, and that of course under the leadership of the Mayor and Councillor Al-Shantiri, we have been able to create a platform for discussions on tough business issues that relate to BIAs and their members that previously was just not possible. And the last initiative I want to mention before we go on to some of the new stuff is the Capital Investment Track. And that is a concierge program that has won us a lot of praise, and the idea is simple, that if an investment is coming to the city which is time sensitive, it's strategic, it's high value, that the city is going to provide them account management function to make sure that we are doing our level best to make that investment happen in Ottawa as quickly as possible. And we plan to further expand that particular program over the next 4 years. And the successes for CIT couldn't have been achieved, without the planning department and their wholehearted, approach in terms of helping us make that happen under John Moser and Michael Mizzi. The next slide is a very simple vision that we are putting forward in our new strategy, and the vision is that we want to strive towards and be known as one of the most innovative cities when it comes to economic development practices. And we know that we will never have the same funds like Abu Dhabi, for example, to spend on economic development. We will never be the same size city as Jakarta, Indonesia. So what we need to do is be extremely smart about how we spend our resources and how we conduct our business, and that is what being innovative means to us. Under this vision, we've got a few initiatives, and those initiatives come under 4 broad pillars: investment attraction, business expansion and retention, long name but the same pillar, entrepreneurship, tourism development, and research information tools. Underneath each one of them are a variety of initiatives, some big, some small, that we are going to pursue over the next 4 years. Under the existing investment attraction program, as the name suggests, that is really a tool to attract new dollars into our community and making sure that whatever exists in the community today is able to grow. And of course, Invest Ottawa plays a key role in that particular regard. Under the new initiatives under this pillar, one of the ones that's worth mentioning is our research consultations have indicated that we should take a serious interest in some new areas. I talked about marketing the city to the right audience, and one of the audience are site selectors that are experts at providing multinationals advice on putting their next big office or their next big facility. And Ottawa has not done a really good job in building relationships with those site selectors, which we intend to change through this program. We also want to work with property owners and organizations like BIAs to play whatever role we can to curb long-term commercial vacancy trends in the various parts of the city. Often site selectors would want to bring in investors to Ottawa, and we want to make sure that we have an effective employment land marketing program that we can use to showcase a range of real estate options from downtown to suburbs to rural Ottawa to those investors. Our post-secondary institutions are pumping enormous amount of talent in the city, and we need to make sure that we're working with the private sector and those institutions so that the right type of talent is coming to the city and that every possible effort is being made to retain that talent. Talent for us is very similar to what oil sands perhaps is for Alberta, and it's really what's going to fuel our growth in the future. The next pillar is entrepreneurship. And one of the lessons we have learned is that we cannot just rely upon future growth for the city based on simply multinationals expanding. And so entrepreneurship continues to be a big focus for us. Innovation Center in Bayview Yards, the things that we do with business improvement areas are all efforts to encourage entrepreneurism in the city. I want to mention a particular small program, very small in its nature, but highlights the innovative nature of some of the things that we are doing. Businesses were telling us that they are really good. One of the advantages of working in a capital city is that they're really good at selling to the public sector. And so what we started with Invest Ottawa was a public sector RFP matchmaking service. So every 2 weeks, there is a list of public sector RFPs from all across Canada and the United States in certain industry sectors that are published, and we highlight them to the local businesses so that they can take advantage and go apply for them. And we're expanding that service based on the excellent feedback to include all RFPs in every country that has a free trade agreement with Canada. Some of the new programs, one of them is the Innovation Pilot Program, and this is one of the most popular inquiries that we get. And the inquiry is something like, I'm a local Ottawa citizen for the last 30 years, and I have a new technology or a new product. How come the city of Ottawa is not buying it from me? And we currently in Ottawa have no mechanism to actually entertain those requests. And often what we find is that the products that are being offered are very innovative. So we have taken inspiration from the Build in Canada program at the federal level and the Technology Pilot Program at the City of New York to create an innovation pilot program that would allow businesses to apply and go through a due diligence program and test out their technology over a short period of time using City of Ottawa's infrastructure. And this is in direct response to an inquiry initiated by Councillor Hughley and a program that was referenced by the Mayor in his State of the City speech earlier this year. Next slide. Thanks. Tourism development continues to be a major focus of ours, and it is not just about attracting big events to the city. It's not just about celebrating 2017, but what we're finding is that this is an industry where we have a lot of potential. It helps us diversify our economy, and unlike Dubai, where they have to make artificial ski slopes in the middle of the desert, Ottawa has lots of assets that are very easy to sell. And so working in close collaboration with Ottawa Tourism and others, we continue to make this a high priority. Some of the new initiatives, one of them worth highlighting today is the House of Sport. One of the things that's very special about Ottawa is that we have a high concentration of national sporting organizations in the city, and they operate very much like startup companies. And they are fragmented across the city, And their role is very important when you want to attract the international championship of that sport to your city. So working with Ottawa Tourism as the lead, we're talking about bringing them together under one roof, providing them some shared office spaces, the ability to share best practices, and really our ability to keep them back in Ottawa, because what we are finding is that other cities in the country are looking at those NSOs as potential targets for acquisition. This is the last pillar and my personal favorite, which is research and information. And this is all about making sure that decision makers in the city, both senior management of the city and councillors, have got timely information available to them so that they can make decisions based on sound research, sound analysis. And so over the last 4 years, we have made an attempt to come up with certain research products, and that has been a very limited effort. Over the next 4 years, we're going to really expand the scope of the type of things that we are doing under this activity. Things like creating quarterly tourism snapshots, commercial real estate reports, BIA snapshots, innovation index. And one of the things that I have found is, we have found is that there are a lot of organizations in the city who are spending a lot of resources on creating research and analysis for their own organizations, and they have very little idea of what else is being created within the city. So what we're going to do is create a data partnership amongst a lot of those organizations, like the Conference Board, like Colliers and CBRE and many others, so that we have access to a whole bunch of research analysis that we previously didn't have access to. In terms of financial implications, most of the ideas and initiatives that are in the staff report, in the strategy document, are going to be covered within the existing EDI budget. And anything that requires over and above the EDI base budget is going to be part of the city's strategic initiatives approval process that you're going to review over the next couple of months. And the last point I'd like to make is that no matter how much thought we may have given to this strategy, we have to acknowledge that the world of business is extremely dynamic. It's always in a state of flux. And so we want to make sure that we come back to you every year, like we have over the last few years, to give you a status update in terms of how we are in terms of executing the strategy, but more importantly, what initiatives have perhaps become irrelevant because things have changed, and what initiatives are new that our City of Ottawa should be considering participating in. So you can expect at the end of every year for us to come back to you with a report card and with some initiatives that might not be known today for the City of Ottawa. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Bashir. Good presentation. I know Councillor Hubert has a question, but we'll go to the public delegations first and then save your questions up for them, and then we'll go back to staff. So we've got Noel Buckley, President of Ottawa Tourism, is first. Mr. Buckley, the chair is yours. Thank you for being with us. Congratulations on a successful Ottawa Tourism Awards last week. It's a great event, and you have 5 minutes.
Is this on? Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to begin by not only thanking you and the members of the committee for my ability to be here today, but mostly for the relationship that we have developed as a tourism sector with the City of Ottawa and the private sector. We have found that over the past 4 or 5 years, under the leadership of key staff members at City Hall, such as Saad and Kent Kirkpatrick, under the leadership of the Mayor and members of Council, that there's a very positive relationship that exists now between certainly Ottawa tourism, members of the tourism industry, and city officials and members of Council. And for that, we genuinely thank you for the ability to work collaboratively with you. We are here today simply to provide support for the plan outlined in the document Saad had just highlighted, entitled Partnerships for Innovation, Economic Development and Strategy. As you are all well aware, one of the key pillars of our partnership has been the events office and special event attraction. I can continue that continues to have success as we move forward. Since we were last here, we have had success in announcing the Briar, the Canadian Road Cycling Championships in both 2016 and 2017, the Whitewater Canoe and Kayak National Championships, the Canadian Track and Field Championships in 17 and 18, and the Roar of the Rings. And for those that aren't familiar with what the Roar of the Rings is, it is the qualifying curling bonspiel that picks the Canadian women's and the Canadian men's representatives for the Olympics. It only happens every 4 years. It is the largest curling bonspiel in the country, the most prestigious one to have, and we're proud to say that the Canadian representatives for curling for the 2018 Winter Olympics will be chosen here in Ottawa in 2017. So there's been a fair number of successes, and it could not be done without the support of this council, of this mayor, and the leadership at the Economic Development Office at City Hall. So thank you very, very much for that. As it relates to the new initiatives in the document, we're very, very pleased to support the document. Particularly, I think the most important thing from a tourism perspective is we're actually mentioned as one of the key pillars. I'm not entirely sure that would have been the case 5 or 6 years ago, and having that recognition as being a key pillar in the economic development opportunity and the future innovation and prosperity of this city is something that matters to our industry. So without even speaking to the specifics within the report, the fact that we're included as a thought in economic development and the economic development strategy for the city is very, very important to our industry, and Saad, congratulations for that as well. Specifically, it is nice to recognize that some of the initiatives in the four-pillar strategy in tourism, such as the Tourism Summit, such as additional investment on tourism investment and attraction, these are meaningful. We spend at Ottawa Tourism the very large bulk of our resources on sales, marketing, communication type activities, ensuring that there is a focus put on the development opportunity that comes with tourism. We see the great success based on the incredible partnership that this city had with the Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group in revitalizing a significant piece of land in our downtown core, land that is bordered by a World UNESCO Heritage Site and the main commercial drag in town. And there are other significant tourism investment opportunities in this community, and the fact that you're going to spend some time and effort focusing on that certainly bodes well for our industry. I guess I'm going to leave it with, we are extremely thankful for the partnership. You have a willing partner with not only Ottawa Tourism, but with the entire private sector. I know how well Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, the Ottawa Senators Sports and Entertainment Group, all of the accommodators and all of the attractors and all of our events work together, and we look forward to a continued partnership. And based on this document, we're optimistic that will be the case.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Buckley? I just want to thank publicly Noel, you and the Ottawa-Gatineau Hotel Association, because as Jean and Mathieu realized at the last Chamber of Commerce Chairs Luncheon hosted by Mark Sutcliffe, the Ottawa-Gatineau Hotel Association announced their $2.5 million contribution to 2017, and I know, Noel, you were very instrumental in working with our staff and with Guy Laflamme and Matt and Jean, and we thank you for that. That was a great boost of confidence.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Great. Thank you very much. Our next presenter, Bruce Lazenby and Brian Harbelich from Invest Ottawa are with us. So welcome. Okay. Sure. So we've got Jeff Westindy on behalf of the Innovation Center. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this morning. I'm here as the Vice Chair of the Innovation Centre at Bayview Yards, and really to thank you for the support that the City has shown for transforming what is currently an old heritage building, aptly titled the Ottawa Works Yard. We plan on making it the new Ottawa Works Yard and have modern businesses actively engaged in the Innovation Centre. And thanks to the partnership with the City and the province, I can say we've made a lot of headway since we signed a land lease with the City a year ago. We are in final negotiations now to award a contract to a design builder, and since it's a renovation, we won't literally have a shovel in the ground, but within the next 60 days, then we will have a proverbial shovel in the ground to transform that to a world-class innovation centre that will be a real showcase of the best and brightest that Ottawa has to offer. So I want to thank this council and in particular the mayor who sits on our board, along with the Economic Development Department for the support you've shown. As the past chair of Invest Ottawa, I can also say I'm very pleased at the level of collaboration amongst the private sector around this initiative. We have strong ties with Invest Ottawa to make sure that we don't duplicate any services. Our customers, largely entrepreneurs and businesses coming to town, we want to make it very clear to them where they need to go to get services. So we're collaborating very closely with Invest Ottawa, but also with our counterparts at the Chamber, with tourism, and with other private sector businesses. And that starts at this level, the level of collaboration the City has had with the private sector. I can say in my time, I've been home for about 10 years now. I don't know that I've ever seen the City and the private sector collaborating as well as we have been over the course of the last handful of years. So thank you for that. And really want to leave you with the thought that we're having an open house sometime in June. Sometime in June. I don't have the date, but an open house that we'll be getting out to council. Would love to see you at the open house for the Innovation Centre at Bayview Yards, where we can share our plans. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Westindy? No. Great. Appreciate it. Thank you. So we'll now go back to Bruce and Brian from Invest Ottawa, and then we have Jasna Jennings and Steve Manuck from the Ottawa Council of BIAs. Welcome.
Good morning, Your Worship. Councillors, thanks for allowing us a few minutes to chat. I'm the Vice Chair of Invest Ottawa and the Chair of the Audit and Finance Committee. I'm also a partner at Welsh, a local accounting firm. I've been on the board of Invest Ottawa and its predecessor, Oaktree, for 6 years. What I can tell you is that the City is an important partner in the efforts of Invest Ottawa. And I've seen it in my work life that there has been an impact from the initiatives that have been undertaken by Invest Ottawa around entrepreneurship and seeing companies being started up across the city, the focus on entrepreneurship and how Invest Ottawa embraces entrepreneurship, the role that Invest Ottawa has played in supporting established existing companies and helping onboard companies who are looking for a place to anchor their business in North America. We've got a strong and valued partnership with the City of Ottawa. The Mayor has been a very active participant in our board meetings, providing great guidance and support to our operating plans and the setting of our vision. I'm excited about where the City is going from an economic development perspective when we look at the knowledge-based sector and how it's poised for growth. There's some great news that we've recently heard about companies going public. So I think that everything is trending in the right direction, and the continued support of the City of Ottawa, together with the other partners at Invest Ottawa, I think position Invest Ottawa to really help embrace economic development and really drive our knowledge-based sector forward.
Thanks, Brian. Mine is sort of a good news, bad news story, I think. There's 4 topics and an approach which I'd like to just touch on briefly. Topic number 1 is entrepreneurship. It is a global phenomenon. You cannot walk through any campus without students telling you they want to be part of a startup or start a startup or get involved in it. That's the good news. The bad news is it's happening everywhere else as well. So it's a circumstance that we can take advantage of if we are nimble. That leads to the second point of talent. Talent is the new oil. Where the old industrial revolution ran on oil-based products, the new revolution is going to run on talent. And so we need to be able to grab that talent here in the city and work with it as best we can. That's why the partnership we have with the colleges and universities and the collaboration we have with the city is so important. We're delighted that all 4 presidents of the major institutions sit personally on our board of directors. We get deeply engaged with them. Dave Ratange and I had a conversation with them last week where they reinforced their desire to work closely with industry and with the city and with Invest Ottawa to make sure that we can attract and retain the best talent. Some of the bad news is on the third point of competition. It is a globally competitive marketplace out there, as Saad mentioned during his presentation. Councillor Harder, I hope you're going to be able to join me in Toronto to the Intelligent Community Foundation Forum, where we're going to see some of the smartest cities in the world and what they're doing. And I think when we sit back and look at it critically, we're going to think that we've got a way to go. And that leads to the fourth point of innovation, and innovation is going to be the key. I was delighted to see that the vision for the city has got the word innovation in it. Tomorrow afternoon we're going to be proposing a vision to the Invest Ottawa Board of Directors, which will suggest that Ottawa wants to be the most innovative city in Canada. I think today we are not. I think we can be. If we focus on it. And I'm delighted that there's several other institutions that are picking up on that word. Algonquin College is going to be announcing their vision, and their vision will be to be the most innovative college in Canada. So if we can get that level of innovation and support, I think we could find ourselves in pretty good shape. And the fifth point is more of an approach, and that is collaboration. And you heard Mr. Waslanda say that he hasn't seen a more collaborative city. Either have I. I frankly was reflecting, Saad, on our first meeting about 3.5 years ago. Not exactly what you call warm and fuzzy. It was a pretty testy encounter, and things have changed a lot since then. And I see Ian Ferris is here from the Chamber of Commerce. I remember the first time I met the Chamber of Commerce 3.5 years ago. That was not a welcome and warm relationship either. But all of those things seem to have gone away, and there is a new spirit of collaboration which is going to have to be our success. We're not the biggest, we're not the richest. The only way we're going to succeed is if we work with each other and strive to see each other succeed. Thank you.
Appreciate your being here today. Councillor Chernyshenko, please.
Thank you very much. I'm very interested in hearing both from Mr. Bashir and from several presenters here this concept of competition and talent and competition for talent. I'll relate a very short story to you and then get your feedback on whether what I heard a couple of years ago continues to be a sort of a major focus or ought to be for Ottawa. Of all things, I went to the National Bike Summit in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago, and after I heard about the fourth major city, medium-sized or big city mayor talk about the competition for talent and the business that they were in as mayors now as being, competing for talent, and the point they were making was bike lanes, multi-use paths, parks, plazas, theater districts, etc., had become the most important magnet for attracting young employees who were essentially could go anywhere. We've heard Abu Dhabi mentioned already. I'm sure they could get better salaries in Abu Dhabi, but they might want to live in Ottawa for a variety of, let's call them, lifestyle reasons. We heard Richard Florida talk about creative class maybe 5 years ago or more and continues to talk about it. Is that something, these are sort of, because we can talk about creative class and talent, but what tangibly can the city and ought the city be doing, building, creating to attract talent? I'm interested in thoughts you might have on that.
Yes, that was exactly the concept behind the Why Ottawa presentation, which I've had a chance to give, and I think you've had a chance to see. And we fundamentally believe that the best talent wants to live in a city where they can get a great job, where they can have fun, and where they can grow. So work, play, and grow are the three key elements. And I'm delighted to say that as we went through and started looking for third-party verification of the fact that we are that city, we found a lot of it. And we still want to be further up on the top 10 lists, on all those top 10 lists. But as you know, there's over 600 kilometers of bike paths here in Ottawa. That is a big deal. 430 kilometers of cross-country ski trails when you're not biking. So we do have a lot of that, but we seriously have to look at every one and say, how do we move up that list in every case and in every category? When I talk to future graduates at the colleges and universities and ask them where they're going to live, they don't care. Could be Singapore, could be Dallas, could be Chicago, could be London. They really don't care. But they want to find a great place where they can get a great job and be happy in their lives. So it is very important, and that's why, Councillor, when we talk about collaboration, it's so critical. If Invest Ottawa says we want to be innovative in our approach, but the city doesn't follow suit, you've got nowhere to go. So there has to be that level of innovation and commitment across the board, every organization, tourism, chambers of commerce, city council, right across the board.
Short follow-up. So are there any specifics that you can identify of what we could and ought to be doing better? I'm particularly thinking about, we know that when people reach the age where they're raising families, schools become the quality of schools, quality of libraries, quality of certain things that are, you're now into your family mode. But that's often, you've already got them in the city, you're trying to keep them here. The young, highly mobile, brightest graduate, getting them here rather than Silicon Valley South or others like that. How are we, and maybe this is much, we're not supposed to be directing questions yet to staff here, but how can we track as much as possible specifics of what people are looking for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, you bring up a great point, and what we don't want to do is do a fragmented approach of attracting talent, because it's not just about the post-secondary institutions. Even Ottawa Senators is always trying to attract talent, the next big player. You know, there are many organizations in the city who are focused on attracting talent to the city. So one of the things that we talk about in our strategy that we intend to follow up is a talent attraction toolkit, which is something that we currently lack in Ottawa, which would package all the different things that you need to sell Ottawa to a person who is just starting their career, and from all the way to somebody who is making a CEO level move to Ottawa. And so that talent attraction toolkit will package things like, you know, focus on bicycling, for example, or the activities that one can do after work. And so a lot of that will be packaged. I think what the Why Ottawa presentation that Invest Ottawa has built tells us is we don't have to create a lot of new things. We just have to, in many cases, make sure that we are marketing them appropriately to the right people. So toolkit is going to be, you know, we don't have a timeline set, but I think in the next several months we plan to roll out this attraction toolkit to all the folks in the city.
And I think it's very helpful that an employer, when interviewing a great prospect, can have a kit to say, here are all the reasons why you want Ottawa, even if you get a better salary somewhere else or whatever, why coming here is important. What I think we need to know as elected officials and our staff do is, are you hearing specific things like, not enough green space, not enough live theater, not enough I don't know what? Is that being communicated to us so that we're able to respond, and not so much in the trendiness? You know, it's not about what the latest coffee shop trend is and ought to be offered. It's something deeper than that, so that we can respond to it.
Just one more point. I promised myself not to mention Calgary in my presentation, but I have no choice. Sorry, Kent. But one of the tools that we developed, which was one of a big toolkit, was liveincalgary.com, for example. And that is a way in which a city can portray itself in a very, very marketing type of a way. And we have a lot more to offer than my previous hometown. I'm not going to name it again. But that is the kind of stuff that you will see in this attraction toolkit.
I was born in that other place, but I've chosen to live in Ottawa.
Clever lad.
Great. Great. Thank you both very much, Brian. And next is Jasna Jennings and Steve Manuck from the Ottawa Council of BIAs. Both familiar to us. Welcome back to FEDCO, and the floor is yours for the next 5 minutes.
Good morning. Hi, nice to see you all. Dear members of the Economic Development Committee and other members of Council, on behalf of the Ottawa Council of BIAs, we'd like to take this opportunity to voice our support for the Economic Development Strategy Update. The most successful, exciting, and thriving cities possess strong economic development policies and focus. Careful thought and direction guiding such strategies needs to reflect the true character of a city, including both its strengths and weaknesses. We support this strategy. and its 4 proposed pillars. Through consultation with economic development staff, we have identified several elements and opportunities in the strategy where we can partner with and assist the city in achieving their economic development goals. As an organization that represents thousands of businesses in the community, we believe that the fundamentals of this strategy are supportive to business. The 4 pillars demonstrate a commitment to fostering and nurturing a healthy business environment while simultaneously highlighting the very unique business offer and diversity of Ottawa. Therefore, we encourage you to support this strategy. But adoption of the strategy is only the first step. Economic development must be identified as a priority for Council and the City as a whole. Therefore, the Ottawa Council of BIAs feels strongly that economic development and innovation should be formally included in all reports going to City Council. Just as all reports are reviewed for financial and legal implications, among others, all reports should include an economic development implications section. Reviewing reports through an economic development lens provides an occasion to contemplate such opportunities and partnerships that otherwise would not be considered. The importance of this viewpoint should not be overlooked. Council decisions have implications throughout the city. Economic development insight and focus is invaluable and would add considerable expertise to the decision-making process. We urge you to take serious consideration of this request and believe it would be widely supported by other community stakeholders. Finally, on behalf of the Ottawa Council of BIAs, we would also like to take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to Mr. Saad Bashir, Ms. Krista Krelling, and all of the staff of the Economic Development and Innovation Department of the City of Ottawa, as well as Councillor Eli El Shantiri, and your worship for your ongoing support and commitment. Since the inception of the Ottawa Council of BIAs, Economic Development and Innovation staff have been an integral partner and a strong advocate and advisor to the city's BIAs. As BIAs are local boards of the city, Economic Development and Innovation staff are our primary city contacts. They have been strong champions of BIAs at both the council table and with city staff, as well as other levels of government and community stakeholders. They have demonstrated a true belief that BIAs are an invaluable asset to the city and bring considerable insight and expertise to the table. They engaged in meaningful consultation and dialogue with us in the development and process review of this strategy and have been integral in our inclusion in the initial stages of other city reports, as opposed to BIAs being an afterthought. We are truly thankful for this commitment to us, and we're happy to work with the city as you move through this strategy. Thank you.
And I think Councillor Harder has a question.
I really found interesting your comment about adding economic development and innovation. I know that, and I'm sure that you would agree, we've been here a long time, you and I, since amalgamation, and the story certainly wasn't that up until when Mr. Mayor became the mayor, actually, in your vision. So how important do you think it is that you have, you've spoken about the economic development and the innovation, but you have this support, this new support that Mr. Bashir was talking about with the new research and, what did you call it, research and information? Yeah. How are you going to be able to use that as yourself and the BIAs, for example? And do you think that they are all up to the speed that you are? Likely not. So, but that information, do you think it will be valuable, and how will you use it?
Absolutely. So there's kind of 2 parts to the question. So maybe I'll speak as a BIA, and then Steve could speak as a business owner. So for us, research is incredibly valuable. One of the pillars, actually, as Saad had mentioned, is simply being a resource for people who want to locate in the city. For me to have current, up-to-date demographics about my area when somebody's looking to locate in the market, when somebody's looking to move to Ottawa and they want to know what we have to offer, to be able to have those numbers to flip back to them quickly, help make them realize that, hey, we're here ready to play, we're ready to work with you, and this is a city with open arms for businesses. It helps us attract people to our areas. It also helps us share that information with our members. That's one of our roles, is to provide advice, guidance, information to our members so that they may make business decisions on their own. Maybe I'll let Steve kind of comment on the business side of how that information would help a business owner.
I think more I'll speak on Kobe as a whole, and I think some of the things that some of the other delegations have spoke about is public spaces. You know, we're looking at developing and redeveloping the market, and I think the information that they give us on how to develop public spaces is invaluable, because there's a lot of things that are continuously changing in the world. You know, we've looked, and I'll just tell you like a small one, you know, learning from some of their research has come as developing the market. We're looking at putting cobblestones and putting it all, but we hear that women don't like that because of high heels and they get caught in there. So those little research pieces that are given to us really help us to develop our strategy of not just a business, but of our whole area and how we live in that area. So it helps us learn. A lot of small businesses can't afford that research. You know, maybe big business like McDonald's, or, you know, they can afford to know where to put their stores, but small business can't afford that research, and it's very, very important that we have that research to be able to understand our customers a lot better. Thank you.
And did you receive the presentation that Mr. Lazenby presented? Was that last FedCo? Yes. You did, eh?
No, we're getting that in about 2 weeks. I think it is in 2 weeks.
Are you going to do a presentation to the co-BIA?
Yes, it comes in 2 weeks.
It's exceptional. It's exceptional. It is, though. From that, you'll take away the points that are your true elevator, your 10 seconds that you have of opportunity, whether you're connecting with somebody on a trip or whatever, you're at a conference and that sort of thing. And I think I'd like to hear back, but maybe just me personally, even just hear back on what you think once you see it. How often do you have somebody call that is a new business, or around the table? I know I get calls from people that are new business people, and will that information be valuable to you in that regard?
Absolutely.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harder. Councillor Hughley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following up on your point about having economic development add a section into every report that comes to council. I'm trying to think of any examples, if you have some, of where that's not already being done. Like, it's not a heading by itself, but I think Mr. Basir's group is very involved in pretty well everything that goes on at the city, and comments on any reports that include economic development. Because, see, a lot of the stuff that does come to council doesn't have economic development implications, right?
I think for us, we want, as we've said, if a city truly focuses on economic development, if they've made that commitment, then it shouldn't be an afterthought in a report. So, like all of the other items in that report, essentially force people to think that way. And an economic development lens is really going to make sure that every time you're looking at a city report, making these significant decisions or investments, somewhere somebody is thinking seriously, what partnerships can come out of this? What opportunities can come out of this that maybe hadn't been thought of because the scope of the report was a little more narrow? I think it would broaden the scope of reports and really make sure that as a city committed to economic development, it's always at the forefront and not an afterthought.
Maybe we can do it as a direction to staff to look at this, Mr. Mayor. My concern is we create a bureaucracy within economic development, and instead of them focused on bringing economic development and nurturing economic development here in the city, that Mr. Basir's group gets tied up writing reports. So I've got a concern with this. I'd like to hear back from staff
so
whether they can do that.
I think Councillor Elshantiri is chair of...
Mr. Mayor, to my colleague, I did speak to our staff, and the recommendations coming from the Ottawa Council on BIA, I think need to be reviewed through mid-governor. When we have the mid-governor review, I believe is something we can do, because has been involved on a regular basis with the BIA. You hear sometimes, oh, this is a huge building coming to our neighborhood, and we only heard about it 5 days before the report come to the city. So can we be part of that discussion ahead of time on a community design plan and others, just upfront to engage them early stage than later. So I think staff are aware of it, and I was going to ask staff if we can include that recommendation for the mid-government review so they can have a process in place, just like legal implication, financial implication, no rural implication, will be no economic development review. That's what we're looking for.
Mr. Mayor, I'd rather see us do it as a direction of staff to come back to us now, and maybe the recommendation coming back would be midterm governance, but one of the things that I think business would say to us is we as a city tend to move slow, and this is something maybe we can move faster on, if it can be done.
Okay, we'll get to specific directions at the end, but are there any other questions to the delegation at this point? No? Thank you very much. I appreciate all the work you do on behalf of the small business community. Appreciate it. Are there any other delegations? We don't have any listed here. So we have questions to staff, Councillor Hubley and Harder, that I have on the list. Councillor Hubley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've been asked by the Ottawa West Board of Trade, which is, I believe, one of the largest, if not the largest now, organizations representing businesses in our community, to express their support, because they couldn't be here today, to express their support for Sad and his team and for this report and the recommendations within it. So I want to thank you for that. One of the things I've noticed in your report, and I'm hearing from businesses in Canada, is that you're making quite an effort to make this a city-wide approach. And I appreciate that, as I'm sure my colleagues from Orleans and elsewhere will as well, that you are including all the different parts of the city. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that feedback, Councillor. Councillor Harder to staff.
Is this on wrap-up?
Well, it's questions to staff, or if you'd like to do wrap-up, it's your choice.
Well, I wanted to speak a little bit about the where we are with the economic development now, and with regard in particular to the planning and growth management, and where we're going in this term of council with that. And it builds on what Ms. Jennings was saying, too, about thinking about it. I think we are. I think we're at a place where we are actually thinking about that. One of our big undertakings in this term of council is the employment study, the employment land study. That's pivotal to where we're going to go, and I think it's a key piece that we've been missing. We haven't touched I don't even know, I mean, never as an amalgamated city, and the time has come. But that's going to be incredibly valuable information. I'm wondering, do you think that you are engaged enough in that process? Are you playing a pivotal role and at the table to the degree that you should be?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, most definitely. And one of my colleagues sitting right behind me, Chris Scope, has been part of the steering committee, and we are reviewing all the documentations, present in all those meetings. And we are delighted to be part of it, because that is one of the tools that we use to sell Ottawa to investors, which is good employment land.
Which leads you into the capital investment track and the CIT, and how that has been effective in current employment lands that we have, for example, in at the 416 in Fallowfield. But that's going to be a real game changer for the city. But everything that you've talked about in the very short time that Invest Ottawa, relatively speaking, it's 4 years old, and it was a dream of our mayor. And I know, Mr. Bashir, you were working here before that, and I had many a conversation with Mr. Kirkpatrick about the fact that why I personally felt that economic development was not at the table where it should be and given the level of support. And we had those conversations that we recall. So very refreshing, because, Mr. Mayor, back when we had Oakry, every single budget cycle, councillors were looking to cut the funding for Oakry. Now I think that if you came with we know that there's the deliverable here, we know what it gets us, and we know the direction we're going. I don't think we've ever had a clear sense of direction as a city. All of the things, all the people that have spoken today, whether it's on the tourism, from the BIAs, these are words that we never heard before. And here we are, one term after you're taking over the controls, and we are making a difference on an international stage. And wherever I go, in my past experience with the library and now in Seattle, Mr. Moser and I were in Seattle, people are talking about Ottawa. And what you're doing is a critical role in that. With the planning and growth management, there's going to be profound change this year. And again, with the collaboration, we've already seen that. The contact we're making with the public, the FCA, the Federation of Ottawa Community Associations, and certainly development industry. We are working with them differently, and we're going to be better for it. And Councillor Hubley was talking about he likes to have faster, more flexible. That's where we already are a short time into this term. And I really believe it is because they have confidence in what Invest Ottawa is doing and what you're doing as a leader in our city. So I want to thank you very much and look forward to further collaboration between the planning and growth management. One of the things that Mr. Mizzi and I have planned is a speaker series. We're going to engage the people that have been engaged with the Planners 101, etc., and we're going to roll out that, and we're going to look for support from local. It'll be Ottawa people that are going to be speaking to Ottawa people, and I'm hoping that Mr. Lazenby and yourself will help us with that, if not speak at some of them. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Eglai, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sad, one of the things I saw in the report, and you mentioned on the slide presentation as well, but I'd like a little bit more detail because I've heard from a number of my residents on it, is you point to one of the initiatives as more support for the music industry. And with all our various festivals and stuff, we have a very vibrant music industry, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're trying to do is more localized talent and build up what we have. So I can get back to my residents who've raised a concern with me. Can you give us a little bit more detail about what you mean by that and how you're going to go forward?
Sure. A couple of points there, Mr. Mayor. One is music has been identified in many literature around us as one of the things that is used to attract talent. So keep that in mind in terms of what we are doing for music. The other thing to keep in mind is that I am, the last person to talk about music, but there have been a lot of private sector people in the music industry, such as Mark Monahan and, the person who owns the big record firm in the city, John Bartlett, I believe his name is. They have made approach to the city directly, indirectly, to say that there is a significant amount of economic potential to, again, package what we have today and also attract some new music talent to the city, grow the local music talent, all of that. And so at this point in time, the thought is that through our strategy, what we're going to do is let the private sector in the music industry take the lead, and we will follow behind them. One of the things they're wanting to do is have a bit of a coordinating body. Right now, the music industry in Ottawa is not coordinated. They don't have a single voice, and everybody seems to want to have that single voice, so we will help with that effort, and working very closely on the whole subject of music with Councillor Leeper, who has been quite vocal in terms of some of the expertise and knowledge that he has been able to bring to the table. So I think what you can expect from us, Councillor, is to come back to you in about 6 months' time to really detail everything around music that the City of Ottawa's Economic Development Department wants to do. And I should mention that the Cultural Services Department at the city has also done a recent study back in March where they have also uncovered a lot of economic potential. So a lot of moving parts, and my job is to make sure that all of them can come in some sort of a package together that we will again come and share with you.
Great. Well, just a couple of closing comments. First of all, thank you, Mr. Bashir, for the work that you and your department have done. I continuously hear very positive comments about your staff and their approachability and the work that you do to, in essence, roll out the red carpet to welcome businesses into our city. It was great to have a cross-section of people, as Councillor Harder mentioned, here today, from small businesses through the BIA and the work that Councillor El Shantiri does with the Council of BIAs that was created a couple of years ago. It gives that organization a forum, really, on a regular basis to talk to one another, to speak with elected officials and staff about some of the challenges that they may be facing. But it also is very beneficial. I find when I go to those meetings, it's beneficial for me to hear from them what's going on in their particular neighborhood. I also appreciate Councillor Hubely's comments with respect to the fact that we've got the president of Ottawa Chamber of Commerce, but I know with the newly constituted West Ottawa Board of Trade, it's working well, and the Orleans Chamber of Commerce. They're all, well, they're not one entity. They are working cooperatively, and they're working certainly well with our city staff. With respect to tourism and our folks from Ottawa Tourism, I think the list of events that Mr. Buckley gave us just since his last appearance here is quite impressive. The number of hotel rooms that those events will fill, the number of jobs that are created as direct result of hosting those events is quite impressive. The number of new hotels that are coming on stream. I know in Canada, I think there are at least 2, if not 3, hotels that are being built. Councillor Deans and I were at the opening of another hotel in her ward, or Councillor Brockington's ward, and one down the street on Walkley we opened the year before. The new hotel that's open just in Councillor Monette's ward, which will serve the East End, supplementing the first hotel that came there a few years ago. The new hotel, boutique hotels that are coming, the Germain Hotel on Slater, the new one in the Byward Market, the one that is going to be associated with Arts Court. All of these are adding capacity, which we need because we have a new convention center that brings bigger conventions, which means we need bigger capacity in our hotels. The work that Invest Ottawa, again, I think Bruce and Brian's comments are very helpful, along with Jeff Westindy. You see the cooperative approach between the Innovation Center and Invest Ottawa, and the fact that we've tentatively chosen a contractor, and we'll be able to, in essence, break ground literally within the next 2 months of that new Innovation Center, which is at the crossroads of the LRT and the O-Train together. So we are firing on all cylinders. We still have some economic challenges that every community faces, but I believe this strategy is going to go a long way in ensuring that we continue to attract the kinds of businesses that a knowledge-based economy like Ottawa's needs, and I very much appreciate the presentation and the input from members of council on this important item. So on the strategy as presented, yes, so is that a follow-up in terms of the...
Yes, the comment came from my colleague, Councillor Hubely, because the West Ottawa Board of Trade, obviously in support of what's been presented today, but their question is, if proposed affecting commerce, innovation, and business community, should consultation be provided valuable research and information? So they're asking if any report coming today, that should be included. But you do, as I remember, have the ability right now, with the help of the city manager, any report it involve economic development, you will be at the front end of it before any decision being made or any circulation. Am I correct on this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we try our best, Councillor, to catch those kinds of reports that have a significant economic development component to them.
Well, we want to do more than we do our best, because we want to, if we need to direct the city manager to involve you with this, well, you got to tell us now. But at the same time, we have asked the deputy city clerk to review this in a mid-government report, because in discussion with our chair of GOBIA, to have this as a standard in the city policy in the future go forward, to have you in economic development reviews, just like legal and financial application and any report. So you will be, but we don't want to slow the process. You don't need to know if a road been built somewhere. You need to know this. But I mean, where something involves economic development, I think that direction to the city manager to invite you over and get you engaged at the beginning of any process. Am I correct? Is that what you're looking for?
That's right, and I would support that. It would make it a bit more formalized, and we don't have to participate in every staff report, to your point, but only select the ones that have an economic development.
Well, maybe, Mr. Mayor, with your help, we can have a direction to the city manager, but at the same time, we'll be working with the deputy city clerk in the future to have this as part of our policy or our governance. But in the meantime, city manager should include the economic development director, Mr. Bashir, in some of those reports. I think that's what we're hearing from our business community.
And I think that addresses the point that Councillor Hughley raised.
Correct.
You know, if some issue has clearly nothing to do with economic development, we're not going to clog up the system by getting a comment, you know, for a project that really doesn't have that impact. So I think that's a good suggestion, and the deputy clerk is there to take note of that. Great.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And on the report, carried. Great. Thank you. So we'll go back to item number 3. There's a presentation on purchasing year in review. I believe it's a brief presentation by our Chief Procurement Officer. It gives us some sense of where the spending is taking place, and I think it's good news from the Ottawa perspective.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'll quickly take you through this presentation. It's a summary of our purchasing activity in 2014. Our purchasing activity in 2014 amounted to approximately $1.2 billion, and that consists of contracts awarded under delegated authority as well as council-approved contracts for the City of Ottawa, as well as the Ottawa Police Services Board and the Ottawa Public Library. Our purchasing bylaw is built on the principle of competitive procurement that is open, fair, and transparent to all suppliers. And so when we look back on 2014 and we look at those procurements where we had no choice but to go to a particular supplier, as in the case of a patent or a copyright or a warranty issue, and we adjust for that, over 98% of our procurements conducted in 2014 were done through a competitive process. We've been talking this morning a lot about how competitive our local supplier market is, and I can report this morning that it's very competitive. In fact, for those goods and services and construction where the services are available locally, 93% of those contracts were awarded to our local suppliers. This year we implemented, with direction from Council, a vendor performance management system, which will be implemented in phases, and initially to our design and engineering and architectural contracts, as well as our construction contracts. And this is a system that we developed in collaboration with the industry, a lot of interaction with the industry, and it went live January 1st. We're hoping at the end of this year to do an analysis of the information collected to determine whether there's enough information in the database that we could start making this a criteria in some of our contract awards. We've also been pursuing an e-procurement system. We've talked a lot about innovation this morning as well, and I'm pleased to report that we closed an RFP. We've gone through an extensive evaluation, and we're now currently doing our due diligence. We expect to have a contract awarded probably later this month with an implementation date of next year. And again, we're going to go forward with a phased-in approach and initially implement it for our procurements that are less than $100,000, which we consider under our bylaws informal procurements, pilot it with those suppliers and those transactions, and then in a year or two do full implementation of our entire procurement portfolio. The Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act came into effect, and you may recall in 2013 there was a requirement where all City of Ottawa staff had to be trained in accessibility, and it too was phased in with regards to the requirements of the Act. Well, in 2014, the Act required that all of our suppliers who provide goods, services, or construction to us also be trained in accessibility. So again, we've worked very closely with the Accessibility Office and our supplier base with regards to ensuring that those contractors working on city contracts have in fact met this training requirement. We also continue to work with the Accessibility Office and our city departments with regards to incorporating accessibility criteria into our procurements. We developed this year a means by which we can measure our success with that, and as you can appreciate, as we get more and more people trained and more aware of this requirement, this percentage will increase, but I'm pleased to report that in 85% of our procurements last year, accessibility criteria was included or was not applicable. You'll also recall that we brought forward a report late last year with regards to certain amendments to the purchasing bylaw. We essentially, over a 2-year period, conducted a review to ensure that our bylaw still represented best practices. And key recommendations within the bylaw was to allow us to accept electronic signatures. We increased the thresholds within the bylaw by an inflationary amount, and we also have moved to semi-annual reporting council on contracts awarded under delegated authority. So these recommendations were approved by council and implemented at the beginning of this year. Payments without reference is a legitimate payment procedure under the purchasing bylaw, and it's done without the involvement of supply management. So our review of those payments can only be made after the fact. We've conducted a review of all the payments made in 2014 and have identified 3 violations, which represents approximately 0.1% of the total value of payments made under this procedure. We've already worked with the departments where those violations occurred. We've educated those involved so that future procurements will be done under proper procedures. And that concludes my presentation this morning. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions to staff? I think the figure that stood out for me that was quite positive was the 93% of basically goods and services are found within the boundaries of the City of Ottawa, which shows that the city obviously is one of the bigger economic generators along with the federal government. So is that figure consistent? Is it up or down from the previous year?
It's very consistent with previous years.
Right. Okay. Councillor Blake.
Thank you very much. And just to follow up on that, are there particular categories we see where that 7% is made up of?
Primarily technology. Technology, buses, road salt, items like that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Elshantier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your presentation. But when we talk about delegate authority and you see a large number like Bell or Canada Post, I know that's more than one invoice, but do you review that process? Because I know you say this is under our delegate authority, but the number is huge, like almost, 3 million and some. So what measure we have in place? Do you review them as they came along, or how you will do this? Just I'm curious to know how we handle that.
In a case like that, those payments are reviewed on as they're being paid, and so they're identified at that point whether they're in compliance or not in compliance with either the purchasing bylaw or our payables procedure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. On a report received. Thank you. Our next item is item number 5, Celebrations Ottawa Incorporated. Councillor Deans had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to the 2017 celebrations. I just did a little bit of work in advance of the meeting asking about staffing in Events Central. So my understanding is that since 2011, there's been 4 FTEs in Event Central, and in 2011 we had 165 events. We're projecting 1,200 events in 2017, and I think at least 25 of them are events expected to attract over 10,000 attendees. So I guess the question is, how are we going to be ready in terms of staffing for this event, and what's the plan for staffing up Event Central?
Mr. Mayor, what I can provide committee with in terms of context to that question is one of the approach. So executive committee and senior management team at the city are focused on the 2017 celebrations, the visioning, Guy's visioning for it, the strategy for the delivery of it. We've turned our minds to what does that mean for the management of the city. I mean, Guy can host a fantastic party along with this organization should council agree to the recommendation. What does that mean for how the city works, how it runs while all of these events and this level of activities happening in the city? So we're focusing on it from an operational perspective. But with respect to, how are we geared up? How do we understand those issues? How do we support the work that would be going on in this organization? You're right. A lot of that is focused on Event Central. You're familiar with SEAT, which is an internal committee at the city that with representation from all departments to help support the successful delivery of major events. And so we've been focused on how do we resource not so much Event Central, through Event Central through SEAT, and we're looking at a plan. Right now, those are secondments. Those are members of SEAT are there as SEAT meetings are called. We believe that as we move in towards and into 2017, we almost need a permanent SEAT, and we're looking at the timing of when we would request departments to second those individuals permanently to SEAT for that period of time.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Maybe at some point as we come closer to it, you could bring back more of a comprehensive plan for us to see. I had sent something to Event Central saying, can you just tell me basically how we're staffing up? And they did mention SEAT, but also it seems like there's still only 4 permanent staff at Event Central to deal with all these events. Is that correct? Yeah.
Let me offer a comment because Mr. Laflamme has staff that are dealing with just 2017 areas of responsibility that have been funded through the existing budget. So I think it's a total of 10 people that are dealing with 2017. Event Central is ongoing events. They'll be working in collaboration with Mr. Laflamme's. But for the implementation of 2017 events, it's really your staff, as I understand it, Mr. Laflamme, that are located out in the East End that are primarily the responsibility for the delivery of all of the programs that 2017 are going to release. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Worship. Our team will be coordinating all the additional events produced for Ottawa 2017, and Dolores McAdam and Event Central will be assisting all existing events in the city, recurring events, in terms of all of their needs, in addition to any incremental support that will be required for Ottawa 2017 events. But we have designed the program to minimize the impact on all municipal services.
Okay, so how does that break down in terms of the number? How many events will your group be leading, and how many events will Event Central lead?
It's to be confirmed, but it will be in terms of the new blockbuster events that we are planning for. We are looking at a number in the order of 10 to 13 new major events.
Those are the ones with over 10,000 people in attendance?
The events that we would be producing, yes, would be in excess of 10,000 people, but I think Event Central, we're referring to events organized by the community.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the difference, Councillor, is that Event Central doesn't run events themselves. We'll be running 2017 events. They help coordinate the facilitation of
Find
road
the
closures.
venues and
That's
all
right.
of those things, make sure there's a safety plan in
That's
place,
right.
all those
Yeah,
things.
it's more the logistics as opposed to the actual operation of the events.
Right, but it's still, like, when you look at the numbers, how they're going up from 2011, when there was 165 events, to 2016, they're projecting over 1,000, and then 2017, 1,200. It still looks like 4 people at Event Central is not enough FTEs to deal with that kind of workload. So am I missing something, or are we going to be staffing up that office?
If I may, Mayor, I don't think you're missing anything. I can tell you before his departure, this is an issue that Mr. Kanellakis and I discussed at length. And the approach, as I indicated, was that we felt that the additional capacity that Event Central would need is in terms of that permanent seat function supporting it. But I would recommend, I think we could come back with a presentation to your committee and talk about that.
Okay. Perfect.
It's a bit premature yet, but as we get into the more detailed planning, we could do that.
That'd be great.
And this is something a little different, though. The Celebration Incorporated office is different than seat and so on. So.
Yeah, I don't think I have a firm grasp on where the line is, so maybe the presentation will help.
Okay. Any other questions on Celebrations Ottawa, Inc. on the report? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Laflamme and Mr. Bashir. The next item that was held was Freeman Pedestrian Bridge over Rideau Street. Councillor Deans had a question.
Thank you. My question is really more of a process question than it is substantive, but in the document under financial implication, it indicates that the $400,000 payment would come from the term of council strategic initiative exercise. And so that's where my issue is, because we as a council really haven't had an opportunity to talk about our SIs, and I just don't want to get to the SI debate and find out we've used this SI as a slush fund for everything that's coming along. I mean, to me, this seems like it should come out of capital reserves, not out of our SIs. So how is this a strategic initiative? I mean, frankly, everything could be a strategic initiative, but I don't want that fund to be rifled before we even have a discussion about what we believe are our term of council priorities.
So, Mayor, if I may, the councillors identified a weakness in the report. On page 9 of the report under financial implications, you'll see where finance identified what were financial implications with the 3 recommendations. And the first one, it says the funding for that $400,000 is recommended to be transferred and identified in the Rideau Arts Public Realm project. I'll talk about that in a second, but the key point being, and is subject to council approval through the term of council strategic initiative exercise. So if committee and council approve this report today, the funding for the recommendation, there's a second step to the approval of this. You're not pre-committing the strategic initiative today, but you're approving this, subject to you approving the funding in the strategic initiative. I can give you the background to this project. It's called Rideau Arts Public Realm Project, but one of the initiatives that will be recommended for your consideration is a Rideau streetscaping project of several millions of dollars. The connection is that in terms of the improvement that will be made in the public realm, in the Rideau streetscape itself, through this initiative with the redevelopment of one of these overpasses and the likely demolition of the second one, that's a significant contribution towards an improvement to the public realm, the aesthetics of the public realm and the Rideau streetscape.
Okay, so if we approve this today, it just moves into the SI.
Right. So we would, when you're considering the SIs, and we are talking about why we're recommending, for instance, this strategic initiative, the Rideau streetscaping project, we would talk about what is proposed to be accomplished in that, and this would be part of that.
Okay, thank you.
On the report, carried. The next item, notices of motion for consideration at subsequent meeting, avis de motion pour examen lors d'une réunion subséquente. Are there any notices of motion? Inquiries? Don't believe we received any written inquiries. Other business? Adjournment. So moved, carried, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.